In the 1960s, Daniel Bell, a professor, I believe, at Columbia, wrote a book called The End of Ideology. And he spoke of a growing pragmatism which came to, of what works, which came to replace ideology as the guiding light in American politics. He was wrong back then. You had Lyndon Johnson, who had a clear liberal ideology, which was largely successful, and you had Ronald Reagan with a conservative ideology that worked very well. And they were about to do their things, and of course, George W. Bush followed with the conservative ideology, and Obama with a way over liberal ideology. It was not the end of ideology back then, but it may be now. In the race of Donald Trump and the incredible support that he's gathering, it's becoming increasingly clear that Donald Trump is not a real conservative. That's the accusation that Cruz is making about him all the time, on abortion, funding of Planned Parenthood, same-sex bathrooms, and all kinds of stuff, including some consequential issues like neutrality with the Arabs and the Israelis and stuff like that. But American people are voting for him overwhelmingly in the Republican primaries, getting 60+% of the vote in the many of the North Atlantic states. While that is a Republican primary, it's not a general election. It clearly reflects a move within the Republican Party away from ideology. Ted Cruz is the Tea Party candidate. If he were just an evangelical, like Mike Huckabee, for example, or Santorum, you could dismiss them. And you could say, well, the evangelicals have no real base in the Northeast. But Cruz is much more than an evangelical. He is the epitome of the Ronald Reagan conservatism, and he has the support of most of the Ronald Reagan conservatives, National Review and people like that. But he's losing, and people are voting for Trump overwhelmingly. And to me, that means that ideology is losing its power to control a Republican primary. And at the same time, Bernie Sanders is losing the Democratic primary, being the most ideological Democratic candidate they've ever had in that party. And the two ideologues, Cruz and Sanders, are both losing. And the two non-ideological, pragmatic people of affairs who manage situations as they come to them without preconceived ideology, Hillary and Trump, are both winning by increasing margins. And I think this reflects a feeling of the American people that ideology doesn't work, whereas liberals are trying to carry on the Obama tradition and conservatives are trying to reach back to the Ronald Reagan tradition. Americans are saying, the hell with all of it. Let's just do what works. Let's do what's in our interest. I thought Trump's speech earlier this week, talking about America first, essentially a pragmatic approach to foreign policy, a long stretch removed from George W. Bush's approach of toppling tyrants wherever we find them and advancing the cause of freedom, I think was a very, very important departure. It really, in effect, reflects what Krautheimer called a mercantilist approach to foreign policy. That is, to base foreign policy on economic self-interest. He mocked it by saying the precursor was Philip II of Spain, who did that trying to get gold out of South America. But the important point is that Trump's approach of I'll do it and it'll work. When Charles de Gaulle ran for president of France in 1957, after the Fourth Republic failed, he was asked what he would do when he became president. And he said haughtily, "When I am handed power, I will know what to do with it." Quite a campaign platform. But that's essentially what Trump is saying. And people are buying into it. And they're saying, yeah, we want someone who's not part of the establishment, not part of the preconceived modes of thinking or the predictable modes of thinking of ideology. We want someone who calls it as he sees it as the situation evolves. Now, I personally have doubts about that. I believe that it's only through the application of classical conservative Adam Smith principles that we're going to be able to turn this economy around. And I think muddling through might leave us with more stagnation. But clearly the American people are rejecting the ideological model, and we have to watch where they're leading and learn from it. Thanks for watching. As you know, on Saturdays I usually do a history video, and tomorrow's video is going to be on the last time there was a practical man of affairs who sharply defeated a conservative ideologue who was the treasured man in the party for the presidential nomination. 1952, when Dwight Eisenhower defeated Robert Taft. And there are many, many, many parallels with the current situation, including the fact that it was the last Republican convention to go to a second ballot. So look at it. It'll be kind of interesting tomorrow. Thanks.